The picanha steak is hands down one of the most underrated, highest valued cuts of beef you can possibly get. Also known as the sirloin cap or culotte steak, I'm going to reverse sear this beauty, and then I'm going to show you how to get the perfect final sear. I'm also thinking I should have enough time to make my all-time favorite wild mushroom sauce to go right on top. Needless to say, we need to start off by knocking out some prep. Sound good? Let's cook. I have a 2.5 pound picanha roast steak. These are commonly in between 2 and 3 pounds, so you can feed 4 to 6 people pretty comfortably. In addition, they run $5 to $15 a pound depending on the grade of it. When purchasing it, it should be bright red in color, have some intermuscular fat that mostly cooks out, but it also will have a gorgeous fat cap that is usually 1/4 of an inch and up to 1 inch thick. This will provide an insane amount of flavor into this. This cut comes from the upper butt end of the cow right beyond the sirloin, hence why it's also called the sirloin cap. It can be cooked as a roast like I'm going to do, or sliced into individual steak portions and cooked just like in my culotte steak video. I want to score the fat cap in a checkered pattern, but first I'm going to pat it dry on all sides with paper towels. Doing this will ensure we get that beautiful golden brown Maillard crust all around. Now that it's patted dry, I'm going to take 1/4 inch deep slices, a 1/2 inch apart, going one way all the way down the sirloin cap. Then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and do those same 1/4 inch deep, 1/2 inch wide slices, creating a checkered pattern just like this. Doing this will allow salt to penetrate deep down, making sure every bite is flavorful, and it will also help from keeping this fat cap from buckling and curling up when we sear it. I'm going to transfer this picanha onto a rack over a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. Then I'm going to pre-season all sides with a total of 2 teaspoons and up to 1 tablespoon of coarse salt. Doing this will allow the salt to penetrate deep down into the steak, ensuring it's flavorful. And in addition, while it rests overnight, the salt is going to allow the juices to creep back into the beef to make one dang juicy steak. Once it's seasoned on all sides, we are going to place it in the refrigerator uncovered for in between 12 and up to 48 hours. So when it is reverse sear time, I'm thinking I'm putting this on the smoker. I'm going to load up my hopper with some pellets. I recommend using alder, oak, pecan, mesquite, hickory, or apple chips. Then, smoker going up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's go back inside and pull out our picanha. Steak looks fantastic, nice and dried out on the outside, going to make a beautiful brown crust when this is finished. You can also see no moisture on the parchment paper. While the salt helps draw out moisture, while it sits for this period of time, the moisture actually soaks back into the meat. That's why this process makes an incredibly flavorful, tender, and juicy steak. At this stage, I'm going to generously season it with cracked black pepper on all sides. Remember, beef loves pepper, so feel free to go a little heavy here. I'm going to be using in between 1 to 2 teaspoons total. Now I'm heading back out to the smoker, going to place it right on the grates, fat cap side up. You are not going to need a pan to put underneath, no worries. And I can't stress this enough, you need to use a thermometer here to get very accurate temperatures. Pierce the picanha into the middle of the thickest part of this cut of beef. Let's close the door and start activating that reverse sear, which is going to slowly render the fat and break down the muscle, making it so tender. I like medium rare, so this is going to cook till it reaches in between 115 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And watch the temperature of this picanha steak through the thermometer. Remember, if you keep looking, then you ain't cooking. Be sure to give it time. Also, I recognize not everybody has a smoker, but you can still pull this off. Here's what you do. This can absolutely be cooked in an oven at the exact same temperature as my smoker, 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's place that scored and 24-hour pre-seasoned picanha steak fat cap side up on a rack over a sheet tray lined with parchment paper, and definitely pierce the center of the picanha steak going into the thickest part of this cut, going in the oven on a lower third rack. And just like on the smoker, we want to get it till it reaches in between 115 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit internally for medium rare. If you happen to like medium, go 125 to 130 internally. Once you've reached that desired temperature of in between 115 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit, let's check everything out. And yeah, oh yeah, absolutely gorgeous. We've got a little smoke on the outside, still preserving that beautiful color. This, my friends, looks incredible. What we're gonna do is take out the thermometer and we're going to let it rest on a rack over sheet tray lined with parchment paper for 30 minutes. During this time period, it's going to draw the moisture, fat, and myoglobin back into the muscle tissue, giving you a more tender and flavorful steak. Myoglobin is a protein that holds oxygen, giving meat that beautiful red color. So no, I'm sorry, it's not blood. So now I promised you a mushroom sauce. We've got plenty of time for the steak to rest. We're going to set it to the side and pull out a bunch of fresh mushrooms. And let me say, all mushrooms are good. If you've got maitakes, trumpet royale, chanterelles, or porcinis, let's go. What I do have is 8 ounces of baby bellas, 8 ounces of button mushrooms, 4 ounces of shiitake mushrooms, and last but not least, 4 ounces of oyster mushrooms. Now, mushrooms can be pretty dirty, so you can rinse them and dry them. What I was always taught to do is rub them with a damp paper towel, removing any unwanted particles or dirt. Now, for the buttons and baby bellas, take 1 small slice, roll it over. What this will do is prevent it from rocking back and forth, giving it some stability, and then just simply slice it. Repeat the process while the buttons and baby bellas. Now, for the shiitakes, what I do is flip it over and wiggle the stem back and forth, and it will pull off with ease. When it comes to slicing them, I usually stack 3-4 high and then simply julienne it like this, nothing more. For the oyster mushrooms, I just slice off the cluster end at the bottom, and then I tear them using my hands until they resemble a thicker julienne slice. Add it to a bowl with the other prepared mushrooms, and for volume purposes, this will equal 6 total cups. And for some of the leftover stems, I love putting these in my stock, so I'm going to place them in the freezer until I'm ready to make it. Next, I'm going to small dice a half large shallot. I have 3 cloves of garlic, which I'm going to smash and finely mince. Now I have 6 to 7 sprigs of thyme. What I usually do is roll it up and then finely mince. And if the stems are tender, you can absolutely use them. There's so much flavor in there. And same with parsley. I have 6 to 8 sprigs with the leaves. I'm going to roll up and finely mince. So much flavor in the stems. Be sure to use them. Then we're going to set it to the side. All right, my commies, the mise en place for my mushroom sauce completely prepped up, ready to roll. My picanha steak's been resting for 30 minutes. It's now time to get that final sear, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can do it. Here we go. After your steak has rested for 30 minutes, this first procedure I'm going to show you is grilling. You want your grill in between 350 and 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to place it fat cap side down. Now, when doing this, be sure to watch it so flames aren't overly charring your steak. You may need to move it around. We are going for in between 6 and 7 minutes. Then we're going to give it a flip and do the exact same thing on the other side. You do want to make sure, however, that you do get a little bit of a char on there, or else what's the point of grilling it? That little char smoky flavor is going to make this so delicious. Do not skip out on getting it. And while doing this, you'll notice how plump the steak becomes. The reason being is that 24-hour pre-season process. All those juices are jam-packed in there. This is a beautiful thing. Once it reaches in between 125 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit or medium rare, we're going to pull it out, let it rest for 30 minutes before slicing and serving. Whether it's from the smoker or in the oven, I'm on a rack over a sheet tray. I'm going to remove the parchment paper because this next one is broiling. What I'm going to do is flip it over, make sure it's fat cap side down. We are going in the oven on a lower third rack, broiler on high. We're going to cook it for a total of 6 minutes. After that amount of time, let's come back. You can start to see the browning taking place. Delicious. Let's flip it over to fat cap side up, back in the oven for 6 minutes, or until it reads in between 125 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit for medium rare, or if you like medium, bump it up to 135 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Take it out, rest it for 30 more minutes before slicing and serving. And the third final process, and my personal favorite, is pan searing. I've got a large 12-inch carbon steel pan. You could also use cast iron or stainless steel. We're adding it to a burner and then pouring in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. You could, of course, use avocado oil. Crank the heat up to high. Once the oil begins to smoke, that means it's pan searing time. I'm adding our 30-minute rested picanha steak fat cap side down, then I'm immediately turning the heat down to medium. We are going to let this sit for exactly 4 minutes. Do not touch anything. Then come back and turn the heat down to medium-low. Now, you've seen me do this before when cooking steaks. For this final 2 minutes, We are gonna move the steak around the pan as best we can. This does not need to be perfect, but what this will do is ensure the top is completely golden brown from end to end. You don't believe me? Let's have a look. Yeah, that's pretty. Now for a few more goodies, I'm adding in a half stick of unsalted butter, 2 peeled shallots, 5 to 7 garlic cloves, then 8 to 10 sprigs of fresh thyme. What I'm going to do now is baste the steak for 5 to 6 minutes, again on low medium, with all that butter, garlic, shallot, and thyme goodness. This will help add so much flavor and give it an even more beautiful brown crust on top. Again, we're cooking this until it reaches a medium rare internal temperature of 125 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's done, we're going to take it out, set it on a rack over a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. Now you could add the thyme, garlic, shallots right to the top, but I just happen to have a little bit of maitre d' butter left over from my other reverse sear steak, so I'm going to add a couple pads on top while this rests. Now for everything that's left over in the pan, you can strain it and cool it. Just like in my fried pork chops video, this stuff is gold for cooking. Definitely keep it. So we've got 30 minutes, it's mushroom time. If you didn't pan sear, you're going to need a large 12-inch carbon steel, cast iron, or stainless steel skillet over high heat with 2 tablespoons of olive or avocado oil. I'm using 2 tablespoons of the leftover fat that I cooked the steak in. Once it begins to smoke, we're adding in our mushrooms, spread them around the pan a little bit. Then we're going to season it with about a half teaspoon of coarse salt, and we're not going to touch it for 2 minutes. Then we're coming back and we want to saute this using tongs or a spoon for 6 to 8 minutes or until it gets a beautiful brown sear on it. And for heaven's sake, take a mushroom out and try it. They take on such a different flavor, from cooked to beautiful golden brown. The umami taste of this is incredible. Once they are browned up, we're going to scoot them to the side of the pan. You see me do this quite a few times. We're going to add in the diced shallot, garlic, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, and we're going to cook it on this end of the pan for about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to start the cooking process, so we're not eating raw shallot and garlic. After that amount of time, or when they're lightly brown, let's mix everything together. Now for a deglaze. You have options. But first, I'm going to remove the pan. I'm adding a 1/4 cup of brandy. You could also use sherry or a good dry red wine like Cabernet. I'm removing it so that nothing catches fire too quickly. Then back on the burner and cook it for 1 to 2 minutes or until it's completely absorbed. If you don't drink alcohol, skip this part or just use a little bit of beef stock. We are going to set the mushrooms to the side because I don't want to waterlog them and lose that caramelization and all that flavor. Return the pan back to the burner and we're adding in 4 cups of good beef stock. We're going to cook it over high heat until the amount of liquid is reduced by 1/2, so about 2 cups should remain. Then I'm adding in a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. Fat equals flavor, my friends. We're going to continue to cook that down until there is about 1 1/4 to 1.5 cups remaining. It should become a very nice thick sauce like this. Let's add back in our roasted mushrooms along with a couple other goodies. 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, our finely minced thyme and parsley, and of course salt and pepper to taste. Mix it all together and oh, this right here is pure gold. The smells in this kitchen are incredible. Honestly, I bet your neighbors can smell it and they're going to want to come over and find out what's going on. It's that good. And we'll always go back to these fundamental classic cooking techniques that just makes amazing food and always the best memories. This is what you do and you share it with friends and family. Get those smiles going around the table. Let those conversations happen. All right, here's what we're going to do to plate this up. You first want to locate which direction the grains are running. So these are running this way. I'm going to turn it and slice it the other way. If you slice with the grain, it becomes very tough. And I'm going to slice this into pretty thin slices, 1/4 inch, maybe only to 1/2 inch thick. Look at that beautiful, medium rare, internal temperature, pink end to end. I'm telling you, the reverse sear never fails. I'm going to leave a big old hunk on a plate and add those beautiful slices right next to it. A little garnish of chopped chives. And because I just happen to have some roasted garlic cloves, yeah, that's going on there too. And why not a few roasted shallots? Then last but not least, let's add some of that tasty mushroom sauce on top. Oh,
I cannot wait for my family and friends to try this. My table's gonna be full of smiles.
And it doesn't matter if you're serving this up for a specific holiday or just as a great meal for family and friends. If you're looking for a great alternative to those really expensive beef cuts, this picanha steak is absolutely where it's at. I have a feeling you and your family are really going to like it. And if you're just one of those comfort food lovers like me, you have to check out my cassoulet. It's hands down one of my top 3 things to eat of all time. I think you're gonna love it. Got a great recipe video. See you on there.